Hello and welcome to BC Sports Saturday. I am your host, Jacob Lassner, and I am joined in the studio by...
Joey Mailari. Appreciate you having me, Jacob. Thank you.
Of course. This is an awesome opportunity for me. You came from this club quite some time ago, I guess.
Correct.
And I'm going to just play the intro now because I kind of messed up there.
No, you are good. You got it.
Here we go. So once again, this is BC Sports Saturday, and I'm Jacob Lassner, joined by Joey Mailari. Is that how you pronounce it?
Mailari, but you're close enough. I mean, hey, we just met a minute ago, so there's no problem getting the name wrong. I have friends that can't pronounce it, so you're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself before we start up this show? Because again, Dom, Gio, and Nick could not make it today because it is spring break on the Heights. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to introduce yourself to the people of Newton once again, feel free.
Absolutely. So my name's Joey Mailari. I was actually an undergrad student here at BC. Was in the club 3 years. Did my own AM studio show on, I believe it was like Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights between my junior and senior year. Broadcast a good amount of baseball games as a play-by-play. Did a couple basketball games as well. And now I'm back as a grad student at BC. So I talked to Dom during the summertime. I said I'm going to be back at some point at BC for grad school. Is it fine if I, come back to the club? And even though I'm a little washed up now, can I come back and just help out every now and then, whether it's doing a baseball game or doing something like this? And he said absolutely. So I appreciate you guys letting me be here. It's truly an honor. Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, of course. We're really happy to have you on today. So just to go over the schedule really quickly, we were going to cover all the bases today. It was a fantastic evening of Boston College athletics, fantastic week of Boston College athletics just this past week, and there's just a lot of exciting things to talk about here at Boston College. So before we get into it, what's your favorite BC sporting event that you've called?
Okay, let me think. It's a good question. Last year I called the BC Duke basketball game, and BC did lose that game, unfortunately, but BC was a good underdog heading into that game. But BC kept it close. They were right there. They lost by, I think it was like 2 or 3 points. This was, I believe, I remember right, like January of 2023. BC at home versus Duke. Duke was either the 1 or 2 seed, if I remember right. And even though BC lost that game, it was just the energy was high. It was winter break, so there weren't students there, but there was still a sold-out crowd, as you'd imagine, because Duke travels very well. But it's just a great game to call. BC kept it close. They were right there. They had me believing they were going to win that game as an underdog. I'd say that game was my favorite. But I've called some good ones over the years. I called the BCU-Miami game a couple weeks ago with Jack Adams, that basketball game. Very close one. BC found a way to win that one, which was great. Some baseball games I called that were good. I didn't get to call the Beanpot game last year. I wish I called that. That would have been a good one. But I called some BC games like versus NC State last year. Baseball. Called BC versus Georgia Tech, BC versus Louisville maybe a couple years ago. But I'd say my favorite has to be that BC Duke game, just because how big of a game that is, calling a Duke game. What about you, though? What would you say? Oh,
man. I mean, that's such a hard one to say. I would say the BU game from earlier this season was definitely a highlight. I also called field trip day for BC women's basketball this season as well, against Stonehill with a good friend of mine, and we ended up reaching 100 points in that game, so that was a really special one to call as well. And obviously the Beanpot is just an unreal opportunity. Huge. Yeah, we're trying to make it out there to TD Garden if we win the Hockey East quarterfinals, which is coming up right after spring break at Conti Forum. So if you're listening, definitely pull up to that game because it's going to be a rock-in atmosphere at Conti Forum.
100%.
Yeah, which, I mean, we might as well talk about that really quickly because how does the atmosphere at Conti Forum for a hockey game changed since kind of you graduated?
It was definitely different, especially the last couple years. Like my last 2 years at BC, junior year and senior year, BC lost Spencer Knight over that time, and they lost all those guys that went to the NHL like Matt Boldy. And so they really weren't great my junior and senior year at BC. There was talent on the team, but it wasn't like they were competing to win the Hockey East. So people would still go to games because it's good to get out there. It's like a social, engagement thing. You can go out with your friends, you go to the game, watch it. And there's nothing better than just being able to walk back to which I was in the mod scene. There's nothing better than walking back, just a 2-minute walk. So it's convenient going to every game. So even when BC was struggling, I went to every game I could. And hockey games are definitely different my last couple of years, like I said. Like BC was struggling. Jerry York's last year, we kind of figured it was going to be the end at some point. And there was talent on those teams. Trevor Kuntar was good. And
huge Trevor Kuntar fan.
100%. He was great. Eamon Powell, there was great talent on BC. Mark McLaughlin. But it just wasn't enough, obviously, to contend in the conference. So my last couple of years, it was definitely different. I went back to a game this year, Conti versus Providence, and against Northeastern as well. And the atmosphere is just so different.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know if you're familiar, but Barstool Boston College is a huge reason why. One of our good friends, Nick, works closely with them. He and the Barstool BC people have done a great job of promoting theme nights and all that. It's been a great atmosphere at Conti Forum, especially for those rivalry games and for some basketball games as well.
Definitely.
What about basketball culture?
Yeah.
Do you like? Do you not like? Do you have anything to say about that?
So BC basketball, my freshman year, they were really struggling. That was right around the time it was Jim Christian still was the coach. They were really struggling in the ACC. They had a few seasons where they won 2 or 1 ACC games in the regular season. They were really struggling heading into my freshman year. This was back in the 2019-2020 season. And once again, that team was definitely less talented than the BC hockey teams I had my junior and senior year. BC basketball back then, they were lucky if they won 4 or 5 ACC games. That would have been a good season. So freshman year, not many people went to many games, just the big ones I felt like Duke, people went to. Miami was good back then, so people went to that game. I think beginning of the season, everyone always goes when you're playing Stonehill and UMass Lowell and whoever it may be, Central Connecticut State, Hartford. When you're playing those smaller schools, people usually go because you're expected to win. And then when they start losing games, beginning of the ACC, people start falling off. So freshman year definitely wasn't as big of an atmosphere for basketball games. Hockey was just the big sport around here then. And then football, people are always going to go to games. Sophomore year, that was different. That was the COVID year, so there weren't really many fans and stuff. So that was a bridge year for BC, Earl Grant's first year. And then junior year and senior year, I felt like people went to more games. Or was it Earl Grant still there? I think Earl Grant came. I think Earl Grant came after my freshman year, if I remember right. No, it was my junior year Earl Grant came. So I apologize. I was wrong. So Earl Grant came my junior year. That really changed the program. He got people in, obviously, got people to buy back into the program, getting some transfers and getting some good recruits. So junior year was a bridge year. And then senior year, BC basketball had some big wins. They were 8-9 in the ACC, or I think it was 8-10 maybe in the ACC or something like that. They were under 500, but I think by a game. But that was a great year for BC basketball considering how much they struggled in the ACC. So people definitely bought into the program last year. And then this year, I guess, you could probably speak more of the basketball environment this season. It's different probably because I think
very different.
We expected probably to take a step up, and we're kind of still, in the middle, of being in the bridge probably of trying to compete in the ACC. But what would you say about the basketball culture now?
It's very interesting to say the least. There are about, I'd say, 20 or 30 people who show up every single game, and they're very, very passionate about the team, and they're very excited about the team. But the students in general are just there's just not that much to be excited about right now, especially because we were expected to take such a big jump up.
Absolutely. I think that's the problem. I think when you look at BC, especially the last couple of years, it's the talent is there, I'd say, on this team right now. Not maybe to obviously to win a national championship, that's going to be an uphill battle no matter what. But I think we expected to make the tournament over the last couple of years, to be right on the border, and it's we're still not there. And that's the problem, That's the issue. But like you said, there's always going to be those passionate fans that go. And I think when you're on campus, just going to a college game, just for the opportunity just to be able to go to one is just great. Because once you're gone, I've only come back to, 4 or 5 games since I've left for basketball or hockey. I've gone to every football game, but basketball, hockey, I've only gone to probably 4 or 5 games, and it's just you miss that. So definitely cherish these moments, being able to go to games, coming to the studio. Those are things I missed. So when I came back here for grad school, I was just psyched to be able to be back in the studio, go to games again, be on campus. It's just awesome. And we talked about this before I came in the studio. We were speaking just out in the lobby, and we were saying how different this club is now than it was over the past 3 or 4 years. And you've done awesome. Gio's done great. Dom's done great. Nick's done great. I'm really proud of this club and how much it's grown. And you guys have done just awesome work. Awesome work.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Joey. That's very nice of you to say. With that being said, let's get into the flyby. BC men's basketball fell to Virginia on Wednesday night for their third consecutive loss, dropping to just 6-11 in ACC play. In that one, the Eagles shot just 23% from three. Mason Madsen cooling down from deep, shooting just 1 of 10 from downtown. They host Pittsburgh today at 6 p.m. and will honor their seniors before the game. BC men's hockey has continued to dominate the Hockey East, still holding that number 1 rank in the nation and first place in the conference. They were on the road last night against a hot UNH team and won yet again, this time 5-3 behind 2 goals apiece from Cutter Gauthier and Ryan Leonard. We'll get into that later. They will bounce back at it tomorrow at Conti Forum. I will be on the call for that one, a senior day showdown against the Wildcats, puck drop at 5 p.m. BC women's hockey, I had the honor and the privilege of working the penalty box in that game last night for Boston College. BC women's hockey lost their senior day battle against UNH last weekend, 4-2. Last night, however, they played against Providence in the quarterfinals. They were the 5th seed. BC was the 4th. It was the Hockey East tournament, and they won 2-1 in overtime. It was an absolute thriller. The Eagles were 0-5-1 in their previous 6 games heading into the tournament and were 1-1-1 against the Friars during the season before last night. BC trailed 1-0 in the third period, and the equalizer came from Kate Ham 15 minutes into the period. And then, in overtime, Sammy Tabor scored the game-winning goal 17 minutes into the first overtime period. And so now they're in the Hockey East semifinals. Very exciting times for BC women's hockey.
Absolutely. So BC Birdball had their home opener unfortunately postponed on Wednesday due to rain, so they will not play their home opener against the University of Maine. That game will be rescheduled. Yesterday, they were on the road to play the University of Richmond and won that game 7-2. John West pitched a gem on the mound, going 6 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts and 5 hits allowed. The Eagles will be battling William and Mary, a CAA opponent, today with the first pitch at 4 p.m. They will be facing VCU tomorrow afternoon. BC softball defeated Virginia on the road 1-0 yesterday in their ACC season opener in an ultimate pitchers duel. Each team only had 1 hit apiece in that game. Abby Dunning was on the mound for the Eagles. Had a great game, going 7 innings with 7 strikeouts for BC. Today they will look to improve to 11-5 in their 1 o'clock game against the Cavaliers. BC lacrosse could not get revenge on number 3 ranked Northwestern, losing that game 14-11 on Thursday. The Eagles did score 4 goals in the fourth quarter, but it was not enough to take down the reigning national champion Wildcats. BC has now lost 3 straight games to Northwestern, heading back from last season to this season. Virginia transfer Rachel Clark led the Eagles with 5 goals in that one, raising her season total to 21. She has scored at least 3 goals in all 6 games this year, so that's very impressive. But obviously a tough loss for BC on Thursday.
Yeah, that was your flyby. Presented by insert sponsor here. Still looking for that in terms of club promotion. But again, it was a really successful night on the Heights last night, and there's just a lot to celebrate right now for BC fans. And I don't think it's been this way for a little bit. Don't you think? I
would agree. I think when you look at yesterday's games, BC women's hockey won, BC men's hockey won. And then obviously softball won, baseball won. That's a great night for BC. And I know it's just regular season for all those games, but besides the BC women's hockey, but just being able to have a great weekend when you're coming out 4-0 in your games on Friday, that's huge. And like you said, things are shifting, obviously. BC's obviously starting to get more recognition. Hockey always got recognition that it deserved. I think BC baseball the last couple of years is starting to get more eyes on. The BC softball as well has had a great start to the season. And like you said, I mean, it's just a great night for BC. So huge, obviously, to go 4-0 last night.
Yeah, absolutely. As Blake James tweeted just 15 hours ago, today was a good day.
He's right. So
now we are going to get into some football, some combine talk.
Yep.
Let's get into that.
Let's do it.
BC football, a lot of prospects on the draft market for NFL teams right now. I would say Christian Mahogany is a big one. I would say Elijah Jones. Those are our 2 kind of big prospects in a season that kind of really, it was a step back from what we thought it was going to be. We kind of thought we were going to get like that 7-8 regular season wins mark, but we ended up getting 7, over 500. So a solid building year for BC football. But then Jeff Hafley decides to defect to the NFL. Wasn't ready for that NIL kind of recruiting train that was kind of going through football, so he decides to leave, go to the Green Bay Packers, and then BC, I mean, they hit an absolute home run hiring Blake James. Just pulled this one out of his back pocket, hiring Bill O'Brien to be the next head coach, kind of re-legitimizing the Boston College football program. Joe, you were at most of the games. What did you see this season that kind of gives hope for the future?
Well, it was a rough start to the year. So when you start the season losing to Northern Illinois, then Billy beating Holy Cross, then losing, it was, I believe, to Florida State. BC started out 1-2. That was a very tough start to the season. That's not the way you ever want to start, especially losing to, which I like the MAC conference, Mid-American Conference, which Northern Illinois is in. But you should never lose to a MAC school when you're BC, especially in your home opener and everyone's healthy. So the season started off very poorly, and then BC went on a good win streak. I think they won 4 or 5 games in a row. That really got people to buy back in. So at least they didn't quit on the season when they were 1-2, especially with a couple of those games being ugly. They only beat Holy Cross by 3, I believe, and they could have lost that game. So it was good to see them buy back in, obviously start to get a win streak, get some confidence, and then winning the bowl game was huge. That's just great to build from last year into this upcoming season. It's great to win a bowl game, especially against an SMU team that was very good. I know their starting quarterback was out, but it's still, you're beating a team that was ranked, also heavily favored in that game. It was a great win for BC.
Yeah. I think that one of the main reasons why BC won that game was because we were just ready to play, and SMU just didn't seem ready. They didn't seem to kick it into that third gear that BC seemed to have in that game. Speaking of BC from last season, this guy didn't play in that Fenway Bowl, but he is really turning heads at the Combine. Here is Elijah Jones on his ex-coach Jeff Hafley going to the Green Bay Packers. That was Elijah Jones on Jeff Hafley, and the way that he framed it in that question, he kind of knew that the team, maybe, I don't know, but at least he kind of knew that Jeff Hafley was on to other things during that season. I guess he appeared frustrated at the whole NIL thing and recruiting process, something that Jeff Hafley just didn't kind of want to deal with, it seems. So it was interesting to hear that, but also interesting to hear how much Jeff Hafley seemed to have prepared Elijah Jones for the NFL. So maybe he's high up on the Packers draft board. Maybe. So we will see what kind of happens with that. What do you think about that?
I thought it was great what he said about Hafley. I think, obviously, Hafley, I think he was a good guy, and I think he's probably a good coach as well. You might just not have seen it this past year, just because BC didn't have, obviously, the talent probably to win 8 games like I thought they were going to. I thought they would be better this season. But when you watch that defense play, there were some holes, and I think that's obviously part of the reason BC really struggled, especially earlier on in the season, and they gave up 45-plus points to Louisville and probably the same to Florida State. Like, their defense really struggled early on. But then people bought back in, and that makes me think like Jeff Hafley at least had the locker room locked in, because when you start the season very cold like BC did, it's easy just to quit. And that's not what BC did. They really bought in, went on a win streak. The vibes were high when they went in that 4 or 5 game stretch where they won all those games. And I think what he said was right about Hafley. I think Hafley probably didn't like the NIL, and the same goes for Nick Saban. Nick Saban didn't like the transfer portal, didn't like the NIL, situation, and I guess at the end of the day, if Hafley says, this is my chance to go to the NFL, why not just take it? And obviously it's tough for BC losing a head coach, but I think Bill O'Brien is going to do great things for this program. What did you think of the Bill O'Brien hire? You were a big fan of it?
Oh, yeah, huge fan. I think it's hard not to be a fan of the Bill O'Brien hire. Again, I feel like it re-legitimizes the program that's kind of not been where it's used to being the past few years. When we think of NFL's successful schools that have produced the best talent, BC is up there. Like, at the quarterback position, especially with people like Matt Ryan and Hasselbeck and all them. I mean, BC just produces that NFL talent that a lot of schools don't seem to produce when we think about Zay Flowers as well. Elijah Jones, he scored an unofficial 9.63 relative athletic score out of a possible 10, which is ranked 83 out of 2,222 cornerbacks from 1987 to 2024. That's pretty insane. I think we saw that Elijah Jones is kind of on a different level last season. He led the ACC in interceptions. He was just tremendous down the stretch for Boston College. It's been great to see him succeed at the kind of NFL level right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think when you look at those numbers, like Obviously, the stats look great. I think when you look at him as a leader as well, like, and I've already mentioned this now, I sound like a broken record, but when you started the season that cold, you need guys to step up and be a leader and make big plays and keep everybody locked in. I feel like Elijah Jones did that very well this season. Last year, the last couple of years, I should say, heading into this year, he struggled with penalties, got beat deep a few times. This year, you didn't really see that. Like, he was really always in right positioning, and you could say, oh, well, he was a grad student, so he obviously had more experience than, guys below him and guys he's playing against. But at the same time, it's still not easy to be in the ACC and succeed and have those numbers. And I have a couple of numbers I want to mention. He had an 18.1 passer rating when targeted. Saw that on NFL Network yesterday. That's the lowest among cornerbacks in the FBS from this past season. He also led the team, like you said, 5 interceptions, led the ACC, and a 32.5 completion percentage when he was targeted. Lowest among FBS cornerbacks as well. Like, the numbers are great, but then when you look at what he was doing on the field, tackling, hustling, all those stand out as well. And then his speed at the combine was great too. 4.44 40-yard dash. Actually hit 23.29 miles per hour on that 40-yard stretch at one point, which was his top speed. That's 5th best among cornerbacks this year. So he really excelled. And the big question is, where is he going to get drafted? Do you think it's going to be a day 2 or day 3? Like, before yesterday, I would have said probably 5th round. And I'm not like all in on the combine where I think it's like a make or break. If you have a great combine, you should be drafted higher. If you have a bad one, you should be drafted lower, because the combine has shown guys that have great numbers in the combine don't always succeed, and then vice versa. But I think he's probably has a chance at day 2 right now. I'd say like a day 2, 3rd round.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, I kind of agree. I think there's a chance that he could go in that late 2nd round, early 3rd round. I think that the Green Bay Packers definitely are gonna kind of, he's spoken very highly of Jeff Hafley, so I think that it's always a possibility for that. But I mean, they're kind of loaded at that position over there in Green Bay. But it would be great for Elijah to learn from those veteran players that they have over in Green Bay. I think it would be fantastic for everyone involved. But there are other teams out there that really need a solid cornerback that are going to be relying on the draft to find that. And I think that if we're talking about day 2, day 3 guys, Elijah Jones is definitely at the top of my list.
100%. And I'm a Giants fan, and I know the Giants need help a cornerback. He'd be a great pick. And I think even Mahogany, the Giants and Jets both need offensive line. Like, you'd probably like to see Mahogany on the Jets, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Speaking of Christian Mahogany, he gave a pretty fun answer when he was asked what he listens to pre-game. He listens to Adele pre-game, which is pretty awesome. I mean, you can tell that he's just so calm out there on the field. He was he like the highest rated offensive lineman in the entire country, Joey?
He was very highly rated, and I think he had one of the best drop back in sacks allowed. Like, I think it was on passing plays, like where the quarterback dropped back. I think he had the first or second best lowest sacks and lowest hits or hurries allowed this past season. So I think when you look at, obviously, the numbers, just like Elijah Jones, those stand out. Then you look at the physical attributes. Like, he's a big dude. And I think when you look at what he did in the ACC, that's a tough conference to be an offensive lineman at any position on the line. When you're facing, Clemson and Florida State and Miami and all these teams that have great defensive lines, he really held his own and was great. And that's why I think it's obviously the numbers look great, and that's why he was highly graded. I think Adele, obviously, it's not a bad artist to listen to before games. I mean, she's got some good songs, so yeah. I don't mind that. Maybe just mellow yourself out, right? I mean, that's everyone has different things what they want to listen to before games, but mellowing out and listening to Adele isn't bad. I'd probably be more into the rap side of what I'd listen to before a game, but at the same time, Adele, I'm probably not going to skip if it's a good song,
Absolutely. I mean, if Adele happens to come on in my playlist before a game, I'm definitely not going to hit skip. So
can't.
Big respect for Christian Mahogany for saying that. I think he allowed 0 sacks.
Yep.
This season when he was under pressure. He is 6'2", 318 pounds, and any team who needs an offensive lineman should be looking to this guy, because he is a total rock for any quarterback out there. And I think he's incredibly underrated when it comes to normal teams and their draft boards. He has met with the Pittsburgh Steelers so far. He was Dino Tomlin's roommate, so I'm sure that there's definitely been a connection there. He also has met with the Vikings. I'm just scrolling to see who else he has met with. I'm not exactly sure who else, but I just see the Steelers and I see the Vikings. So look, also Philadelphia. So you know?
Yeah, they all need help on the line, all those teams.
Yeah.
And the numbers were great. I mean, this is the number you just said, 0 sacks allowed, 0 quarterback hits allowed, and 279 pass block snaps. See, that was the stat that I was trying to remember on, drop back plays or the quarterbacks dropping back on pass plays. 279 pass block snaps, no sacks allowed, no hits. And that's coming off a torn ACL. Like, he had a very good season.
Yeah, coming off a torn ACL, that is just crazy to me. I mean, whoever was in charge of his rehab process deserves a pat on the back because they just did an incredible job along with Christian himself. I mean, you can see how dedicated he is to the Boston area, how dedicated he is to Boston College, which leads me to believe that he kind of wants to stay in this area because it's an area that he has become accustomed to. But he also has met with the Miami Dolphins. He said that he wouldn't be opposed to be playing in Miami, a bit of a warmer climate than what he's used to in terms of playing football. So it's all very exciting stuff to see our guys succeed.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at, same thing with Elijah Jones, like these guys are probably going to go day 2. And if Elijah Jones slips to day 3, he's an absolute steal. Just based off being able to get him, let's say, in the 4th round, where the value is very, very great there. If you were to get him in the 4th, 5th round, like, that's great value. And then even Christian Mahogany, like, even though he's probably not going to go first round because interior offensive line, there's only, typically a few guys that are a center or guard that go in the first round. Usually they're like a 2nd round, 3rd round pick, a day 2 pick. He could be a steal as well, depending on where he's drafted. And both of our teams need help on the offensive line. I mean, Aaron Rodgers needs help.
Definitely the Jets. I would not mind drafting Christian Mahogany as a day 3 pick.
Why not? Absolutely. I think Mahogany probably roughly right now, like, 3rd round. I'd say the same thing for Elijah Jones. Mahogany probably could go late 2nd. Maybe he could slip too. I mean, there are guys that should be drafted higher that don't get drafted higher.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to this in bold predictions, but I'm not sure really how the offensive lineman NFL draft work because so many teams right now need offensive linemen. Where does Christian Mahogany rank in terms of like every single offensive lineman available in the draft? Like, what day should he go?
I think when you look at the class, there's so many tackles. It's very tackle heavy in the first round, especially. So when you look at that first round, if guys are going to get drafted, they're typically going to be a tackle. So like Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, Talizi Fuaga out of Oregon State. Like those guys are all going to be top 10, top 15 picks just because the tackle position is so important. And I'm not saying being a guard or a center isn't valuable. Like you need that, but a left tackle is essentially, unless you're a tackle you need a good right tackle since he's a lefty. A left tackle is the most important position on the football field at times. And we saw that with the Jets last year. Like, left tackle has been an issue, which Mekhi Becton, I think if he were to pan out, I mean, the injuries have been a problem. He could have been great. But left tackle is such an important position, so that's why the first round is going to be all tackles realistically. And then there's some other guys, like there's a center on Oregon, Jackson, forget what his name was now. Jackson Powers Johnson, I think it is, something like that. Like, he had very good measurables. I saw had a very good season this past year for Oregon. He could go first round. But then I feel like guards, like, a GM might say a guy's a 2nd round pick, and another GM might say he's like a 4th round pick. Like the Patriots took Cole Strange in the 1st round a few years ago, and Sean McVay said he was like a day 3 pick in their eyes. So like the guard position is so hard, I'd say, to grade from GM to GM. But where would I take Mahogany? I think he's a day 2 pick. I would take him 2nd or 3rd round. I really would. And what would you say?
Well, we'll get to that as we head into
the bold predictions.
Bold predictions.
Yes.
So we make predictions, and you listen here on Bold Predictions. So, Joey, you can start us off here.
Okay.
What is your BC bold prediction right now?
This is a big bold prediction, and I would have said Elijah Jones going like the 3rd round before yesterday would have been a bold prediction, but based on what he's been doing, and now he's getting more respect after having a very good combine, like 3rd round's not a bold prediction probably anymore. Like that legit could happen. Mine is a lot bolder than that. I was gonna say BC football wins 7 games next year, but I was like, for this being let's say this is my only time in a Sports Saturday, I was like, that's not really bold enough. I gotta have a more bold prediction. So I'm gonna go with BC football, and this is pretty heavy, winning 8 regular season games next year, going 8-4, and that's a tough schedule. I said that to my dad today, and he was like, 8 games. I was like, I could have said 7. I think 7's obviously more realistic, but I want to go 8, and I think with Bill O'Brien, there's going to be more discipline. Hopefully, BC can find a way to shore things up on defense. That was a problem at times last season. I think the offense really took off in the second half of the season, even though there were a couple games where Castellano struggled, especially in that last game of the year at home. I think it was against Miami. Really struggled in that one, throwing the ball. But I expect BC to take a step up this season. If last season didn't go poorly at the start and they didn't lose to Northern Illinois, that would have been an 8-win season with the bowl game, obviously, winning 7 regular season games in the bowl game. So 8's not out of question. It's just BC does have a tough schedule. Playing Missouri's a tough game. Yeah. Michigan State, I mean,
Missouri,
that's a Power 5.
We beat them at home on Parents' Weekend.
We did.
Freshman year. That was awesome.
That was like the biggest win for us in a couple of years.
And look at the direction that those two programs went. I mean, Mizzou had a tremendous season last year, and we did beat them. And it's really awesome to think about moments like that. It's same kind of thing happens in basketball too, when we beat an opponent and then they become just like an actual powerhouse in terms of March Madness or whatever. Mizzou made it to the Big Ten championship last season, and now we hired Bill O'Brien. So hopefully we can kind of trend very fast upward like a school like Missouri did last season.
Absolutely. That's my prediction. 8 wins, I should say, for BC next season in the regular season. That would be the first time doing so since, 2009. 2009.
Wow.
2009. So that's a pretty bold prediction.
That season, do you know?
So it was after Matt Ryan was gone. Trying to think. It was Spaziani was the head coach back then. It was before Dawes even. Trying to think who the quarterback was. My dad would definitely know this. He's probably listening right now and disappointed in me. Chase Reddick, it was before that. It was before Tyler Murphy. Trying to think who the quarterback was back in 2009. It's a good question. I'll have to check it out.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, you go. Yeah, I'll let you check it out. But BC had 8 regular season wins that year. They were great. 2009, that was, I believe, Spaziani's second year maybe with BC. And obviously things haven't really gone BC's way since then. I mean, it's 15 years later. So BC hasn't won 8 regular season games.
Dave Shinsky.
Okay.
Dave Shinsky. Has for just over 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions.
Okay.
When I look at that. So that's who was quarterback for BC. Last time they won, 8 games.
Yes. Yeah.
Or 9 games.
8 games. Yeah, 8 games. 8 regular seasons. So Frank Spaziani was the head coach. That was his first year with BC. 8-5 overall, 5-3 in the ACC. So
that's pretty good.
Not bad.
If we can reach that mark in a season like next year, when we have such a hard and complicated schedule, that would be an unbelievable turning point for this program. And I think that we're well on our way right now, folks.
Absolutely.
In terms of Boston College football, my bold prediction.
Let's hear it.
It's pretty bold. The New England Patriots are going to draft Christian Mahogany with the 34th overall pick in the draft. That is my bold prediction. That is probably,
wow.
I mean, it's bold, so who knows if it's going to come through. But Patriots really need some guys on their offensive line. I listen to it all the time on WEEI. They're always arguing about what the Patriots need most. People say that they need that rookie quarterback, but who's going to protect that rookie quarterback? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So a guy like Christian Mahogany would really help the Patriots out. And again, if he doesn't get chosen in that second round, there's always potential for him to go in the third round to the New England Patriots as well.
Absolutely. That's a great prediction. It's bold, but I like it. Like, I could see that happening. Mine's probably a little more, probably higher aspirations, I'd say, like BC winning 8 games, just because the schedule is going to be tough next season. Like, this year was the year for BC to win 8 games, playing Northern Illinois and Army and all those teams they had to play against. Like, this was probably the year 8 wins was more feasible, but I think next year it's possible for BC, but it's going to be a tougher schedule, like we've noted. But I think Mahogany would be a great addition to that Patriots offensive line. They need help, whether it's Mac Jones at quarterback, Drake May, Caleb Williams. It doesn't really matter who's there at quarterback. They need help, like you said.
Yeah.
You know that.
And I definitely think that Christian Mahogany can help them get to that level in terms of their offensive line. He is just a phenomenal player, and he will just be a great add.
Absolutely. 100%. And the Patriots, like you said, they need help on that line. And shout out to Dom Ferrucci. He's listening. Said we're crushing it. So that's great. He's got his bold prediction. BC goes 3-0 in hoops down the stretch. That's pretty bold.
Wow, 3-0 in hoops. Who do we got? Who we playing?
So we
next?
got Pittsburgh today, senior day. Wednesday at Miami, tough game. And then Saturday at Louisville, which BC beat Miami the last time they played. This was at Conti Forum, but heading into that game, BC lost 4 straight. So it's pretty bold, but I like it. And this is another prediction where I could see it happening. 8 wins of BC in football is probably the craziest prediction we've got here just because of the schedule. But I like Dom's prediction. It's bold, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
With that being said, let's get into basketball.
Let's do it.
The UVA versus Boston College game just this past week. I believe it was on
Wednesday night. Yep.
Wednesday night, 9 p.m. tip-off. Vibes were not great at that game, I must say. I sit in the front row every game. Nick Petralia does most of the broadcasts for us. And the energy in the building was I don't know, it was kind of sad because we lost that game. It was reminded me of the game against Virginia just last season in which we dethroned the number 6 ranked ranked Cavaliers. And last season, or this game against them just didn't feel the same in a lot of ways. Senior day is today, though, senior night at 6 p.m. at Conti Forum. So if you can make that one, definitely pop out to that. But do you want to speak about anything that went down during that UVA game?
So that UVA game, BC really struggled shooting the ball. And last season, that was a great game, like you noted, like that win BC had where we stormed the court, like that was awesome. But BC shot so well in that game, and UVA typically plays good defense. They always do. BC did still score 68 points on them the other night, but the offense really struggled to start. And even though BC scored 45 points in the second half, which Virginia also scored 45. Virginia outscored BC 27-23 in the first half, and then, which was very low scoring. Both teams were really struggling shooting the ball. But second half, BC did score 45 points, but they were still struggling from three. 3 for 11 from three. 3 for 11, 27% as a team in the second half. And that was a major key in that win last year. Like BC had a lot of clutch shots in that game. Makai Ashton-Lankovic had some big shots. Quinton Post had some big shots. BC didn't really have that answer the other night. And even though they kept tailing closer and closer, and it felt like, okay, BC can still win this game, even with like a minute to go, they were still in it, it just felt like too much of a stretch. Like it just felt like too much of a mountain that they had to overclimb, you know?
Yeah. The one thing that stood out to me the most in that game was the lack of a presence in the paint in terms of rebounding the ball. We could not get a rebound to save our lives in that game. We got out-rebounded, let me do the quick math, 37-30. So they grabbed 7 more boards than us, but there were a lot of opportunities that the score sheet doesn't show where Quinton Post or Prince Aligbe or Armani Mighty did a great job. He grabbed 2 offensive boards, drew a foul for us down the stretch. He only got 2 minutes of playing time, but he really made his presence known. He's got to work on his free throws, though. He missed both of his free throws. But BC has to do a better job of boxing out and kind of getting physical in the paint without fouling because, again, McLaughlin fouled out in that game down the stretch as well, and he's a guy that we just can't afford to lose.
Absolutely. I think rebounds are huge, and that was against a UVA team. I think my dad told me before the game, UVA's biggest player, I think, was 6'8" or 6'9", and BC's got bigger guys than that. It's like, it doesn't always come down to height. Like, at the end of the day, basketball is a lot of the time about positioning. Like, I wasn't the biggest guy on the court. I stand at 5'9", 5'10", but I got a lot of rebounds in my day just by jumping at the right time, positioning. In UVA, it wasn't even like they were in the right position. It was just like BC was just like, not locked in on the rebounds like you were saying. And that's a problem. Like, there were times when I thought, Post could have gotten that rebound. Or like you said, McLaughlin maybe. Same goes for Aligbe. Like, there were more chances for BC to get rebounds than they had, and that's a big part of the game, especially when you get to March. Like, in March Madness, a lot of the time the team that shoots well and gets more rebounds wins. Like, that's a big, big factor. In BC, they struggled, obviously, rebounding in that one against a smaller team. Free throws were a big part of the game. BC shot pretty well from the free throw line, 15 of 18 the other night. But that's another thing that's big when you get to March. But that was a tough loss for BC. They were right there, like points-wise, 72-68 they lost. But I feel like it just felt like, as I said, too much of a mountain for them to try to climb over, and that's a problem. But today, hopefully, things are different. I'll be on the call for that game today against Pittsburgh. So I get today's basketball game. You got tomorrow's hockey game, huh?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. So, very exciting stuff going on. BC's senior night is tonight. I unfortunately can't make the game, so you're going to have to,
I'll be there.
Yeah, you better hold down the fort for us WZBC Sports members, Joey, because
I'll do my best.
we're all on spring break here. It'll be you and Jaden Zachary Supervan in the front row leading the charge for the Boston College Eagles. BC right now, number 11 seed in the ACC, slated up to play against Georgia Tech in the first round of the ACC tournament if the tournament ended today. They win that game, they play against Syracuse. They win that game, they play against UVA in the quarters. So there is a way. There is a way. Georgia Tech, of course, a very beatable team, number 14 seed in the conference.
Yep. And BC already beat them this season. High-scoring game at Georgia Tech, 95-87. Things were a little bit crazy at the end of that game, though. Tempers were flaring, and so that game could be a different one for BC. Like, I feel like it's going to be very physical both ways. I remember it was Stoudemire, the head coach for Georgia Tech, was getting into it. I think it was it McLaughlin?
That was the game where McLaughlin and Claudel both had 30 pieces, I think.
Yep.
And then we were down by, I think, 16 with 10 minutes left, and we ended up coming back and winning that game.
They did.
So,
they were down 13 at half. BC really struggled in that one to start, and then outscored them 57-36 in the second. But Georgia Tech is a beatable team for sure. They have had some wins this year, though, where it was like they put things together, at the right time. Like they beat UNC this year, if I remember right. So it won't be an easy game, but it's definitely a game BC can win, which is good. I feel like in the ACC tournament, when you win that first game, momentum starts to swing and you start to go on a run, like BC did a couple years ago, and at the start of the Earl Grant era, that was obviously a great way to get things going.
Yeah. Hopefully that magic can continue because we've beaten Syracuse at home. We lost to Syracuse a bunch before then. We were on a terrible losing streak to them, but the current way to get to the ACC tournament semis, the hardest team we're going to have to play is UVA, a team that we only lost to by 4. It was at home, so do with that what you will. But there is a significant, I'm not going to say the word that we use during football season because you can't really say that again, especially the way that things went after that. But there is a way for BC to get to the ACC semis. Nick Petralia picked BC to make the semis in bold predictions last week. So,
I heard that. I listened. Yeah, you guys all said, can't say that word, you can't say that word, which I get. I mean, it did get people to buy in to the football season, which, I mean, I don't really want to say it, but I guess I will for people listening if they don't know. The Path. Yes. It's called The Path, which BC football had a chance of potentially making the ACC championship game in football this season. At one point, when they went on that 5-game winning streak, and then things fell apart. But basketball, it's not like it's impossible. Like BC a couple years ago made a run,
Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but it's obviously at the same time, it's still an uphill battle considering, BC has nights where they don't put things together. And there's a guy on BC that was really great for them over, the stretch where they won 3 games in a row, and that was Mason Madsen, was shooting the ball very well. The other night, 1 for 10 from 3, like you said, and now BC's lost 3 straight games. It's like BC needs to shoot the ball very well in that tournament, which that sounds like, cliche, because everyone's going to say you need to shoot well to win. But BC, they rely on the 3 sometimes, and if things go south, you lose that game. The Celtics still have won a couple games. They shoot a million threes. Like the other night, shot a million threes, still found a way to win the game even though they struggled.
Yeah.
This BC team probably needs to hit those threes.
Absolutely. I mean, they're going to have to hit the majority of their shots to have any kind of a chance in the ACC tournament. Guys like Mason Madsen have to step up and hit their shots. QP as well, 1 of 4 from the 3-point line, 6 of 14 from the field. He had a very quiet 24 points, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 2 assists, and 10 rebounds, which is a great stat line, but I just didn't seem to really notice as it was happening.
You're right.
One thing that does stand out to me in his stat line, he went 11 of 11 from the free throw line, which is something that I think if BC hit 80% of their free throws down the stretch in the season, they would be in a much different and better spot. They would have beaten FSU when they played them on the road. They missed a lot of key free throws in that game, at least. I can't remember in which BC just could not convert from the free throw line, and it really was the nail in the coffin on this regular season.
Absolutely. And that's been a problem for BC for years. Like, they're shooting the free throw, better this year than they have in years past. But, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, we talked about at the beginning, BC, at the start of my time at BC, in 2019, going to games, they really struggled shooting free throws. That was, a huge problem for them. And there'll be games where it happens yet again, but it's still less than it was, 2 or 3 years ago. But it still can happen where they go really cold at the free throw line and they're losing games because, they're shooting 50%, from the charity stripe. And that's a place where you need to be hitting shots if you want to win, especially when you're playing a physical game. Like, Georgia Tech's probably going to be a physical game. BC's probably going to beat the line a good amount in that one. If that's the way the first round works out, it's BC versus Georgia Tech. BC needs to hit free throws. They need to limit turnovers. The other night, there were some careless turnovers, especially late in that game. Mason Madsen had a careless turnover, losing the ball in the paint. He also airballed a three. That was a cold night for him. They need him to be better. And he's definitely an X factor, but who would you say is the biggest X factor for BC?
I would say Devin McLaughlin is the X factor. But Claudel Harris is up there as well. Claudel Harris had a tough night from the field, only scoring 8 points against UVA. He went 3 of 9 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, 1 of 2 from the free throw line. No offensive boards, only 1 rebound, 2 assists. He has to be better on all sides of the ball if BC wants to have a chance to win, because he is that guy that we brought in to score. He's that guy that Earl Grant trusts with the ball a lot. We see the ball in his hands a lot of the time when we're in the when we're attacking the basket. We see him shoot a lot of fadeaways. We see him shoot a lot in kind of ISO possessions from 3 in the corner. He has to be better shooting the ball if BC wants to win. And Devin McLaughlin has to not foul out. So that's it might be hard for him against a team like Georgia Tech, who seemingly kind of went after him in the last game, especially with their coach kind of calling him out towards the end for going up for the two-handed slam to ice the game out with no time left on the shot clock. He's
from Georgia, too, so I think that game, just being in front of his, home fans, a lot of his friends and family were at that game. He probably just wanted to get an extra bucket. Why not get an exclamation point in the game? Which I know it's an unwritten rule in the game of basketball, but I think a coach probably should never react like that towards a player. Maybe he talks to Earl Grant about it. That's what I would do. But McLaughlin, though, had at one point 6 straight games where scored double digits, starting January 23rd against Virginia Tech all the way through Louisville on February 13th. So a very good just about month there for him. And then 3 of his last 4 games, 6 points, 13 points, 1.9 point, 9 points. You probably need a double-digit game for if you want to win. Like you said, he's an X factor. I think Quinton Post is probably my X factor, because there are games I feel like he can do more. And I think in crunch time, Jaden Zachary and Quinton Post need to probably step up more in crunch time than they have. Because I think when I look at them play, a lot of the times Claudel Harris taking the big shots, and I like Claudel Harris a lot. It was a great pickup by Earl Grant. But Zachary and Post have been here the last, 3 years. They know, obviously, what it takes to win games, and they've been in a lot of close games where they relied on Mekhi Ashton Langford, hit some big shots last year, and it seems like Claudel Harris is the guy this year taking more of the big shots. I want to see Zachary and Post take a big shot in the next few games. So then when you get to the tournament, it's not like this is their first or second time taking a big shot this season, which I'm not taking away from this season. They've both had very good years, overall stats-wise, but I'm talking a big moment in the clutch. I want to see one of them take a big shot. Because I'm trying to think this season, most of the big shots were Madsen, I feel like, and Claudel Harris. And I want to see Post and Zachary be those guys that take those big shots.
Yeah, well, that gets us to our next segment here. I believe it is Wagon of the Week. Am I right?
Yes.
So,
you got it.
Wagon of the Week this week. Last night, Boston College women's hockey goes up against Providence College. Boston College women's hockey losing their last 6 games. They're 0-5-1 in their last 6 games. And then they come out last night a bit flat-footed, I must say, as I was a witness to this, working the penalty box for BC Athletics, and take a few penalties that could have been called, could have not been called. The Hockey East referees really decided to get involved at all the worst moments of the game, calling a penalty with 1 minute to go in the third period. Getting to that, though, Providence College takes a 1-0 lead. BC storms back, ties it at 1. That was Kate Ham who scored that second goal of the game. Tied at 1. Ham takes a penalty with, I'd say, just like over a minute to go, maybe a little less than a minute to go in the third period. It was like a needless slashing on the gloves of one of the Providence forwards. The coaches immediately threw their hands up on the Providence bench, and the referees happened to be looking over there, so they just raised their arm and called it. And it was very, very kind of took the wind out of everyone's sails at that point. Everybody was very excited. Game was going to overtime, and then BC really hunkered down, killed off the penalty in the opening minutes of overtime. And one thing that I want to note is their defensive coach, who just got nominated to coach the women at the Under-18 Championship next season. I want to see what her exact name is, but I can't quite find it right now. But she is doing a fantastic job on defense, coaching up our defense, because the amount of 3-on-2 rushes that Providence College had in overtime, where the forwards were just not back-checking hard enough, our two defense who were back just did a tremendous job blocking the shot, keeping Providence to the outside, defending the person who was cutting towards the net, looking for a rebound. Grace Campbell made over 46 saves in the game. That's why BC Women's Hockey is definitely my wagon of the week. Sammy Tabor scored the game-winning goal with less than 2 minutes to go in that overtime period. It was a special game to watch. I mean, one of my favorite hockey games that I've ever watched on the Heights. It was a tremendous, tremendous game.
Absolutely. I only got to see the box score for this one. Unfortunately, didn't get to watch. But looking at the box score, and then obviously I saw the game-winning goal, so I didn't get to watch the whole game like you did, which it's great you're doing the penalty box stuff. That's really cool. I mean, you got your hands on the game, which is awesome. But looking at the box score and seeing the game-winning goal, obviously when you see an overtime throw, it doesn't matter if you score in the first minute, the 17th minute like BC did. Like any overtime game when it's playoffs, I feel like that's the best part of hockey, is playoff hockey, especially in an overtime. So BC finding a way to win this one definitely flips momentum, kind of like BC in the ACC tournament a couple years ago. Men's basketball going on a win streak in that tournament, going on a run, getting their first win. That's huge. BC women's hockey lost their last 6 games, 0-5-1. So winless in their last 6 games heading into last night. So obviously things weren't going well. Find a way to win that game. Scrappy win, 2-1. Obviously some penalties that didn't go BC's way like you noted. 3 of the penalties for BC in this game, 3 of their 4, came from their goal scorers. Kate Ham had 2, like you said, 1 with a minute, 8 seconds to go.
Yeah, so something about that penalty box inspired these 2 women to go out and score clutch goals for Boston College. Something about that penalty box. I don't know what it was.
Might have been you.
I don't know. We'll see.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next round of the Hockey East tournament for them. But they're definitely my wagon of the week. The coach who was eluding my mind was Courtney Kennedy, who just got nominated to serve on the bench at the IHF U18 Women's World Championships in 2025. So congratulations to her. She is a fantastic person to get to know. She is very enthusiastic, and she does a great job coaching because on defense, again, we blocked 6, 7, maybe even 8 odd man rushes in that overtime period, and it was really, really special to watch.
Yeah, and BC, like you said, I mean, that was a special win, obviously getting momentum, and they were outshot in that game 47-35. So a lot of time you get outshot like that, you don't win many of those games. So obviously BC's goalie had a great game as well. Grace Campbell had 46 saves in that one. Just 1 goal allowed, 46 saves. And that was with 77 minutes of play. It was basically a whole period, was overtime, 17 minutes in. So obviously a big win, and now they're in the semifinals. Things are rolling.
Yeah, so with that, we are going to get to our break. We'll be back at 2 o'clock on BC Sports Saturday. Thank you for tuning in. Back here on BC Sports Saturday. My name is Jacob Lassner, joined here by, again, I don't want to
I got you.
Last name,
I got
Joey,
you.
So
Joey Mayolari. So you got it.
Yeah,
you got it. There you go. Hey, perfectly there.
So, back on BC Sports Saturday, we're going to open up with some Birdball.
Yep.
What do you thought? What are your thoughts on the season so far, Joey?
One thing that I really like with this BC team is the offense. Obviously, they scored 17 runs against UT Arlington in the last game against them, the third game in that 3-game series. Then against Richmond, 7 runs yesterday, 7-2 win. the runs are coming for BC, which is huge. The offense is obviously putting up a lot of runs on the board, and that was like one thing that was an issue last year was even though the offense was great for most of the season, they'd have off games, and this is early in the season, so it's still a long way to go. But BC is consistently scoring runs, which is huge, and that's even with losing a lot of guys over the last year. Losing Joe Vitrano, that's a big loss. A couple years ago, losing Luke Gold. Like, BC has lost a lot of big parts of their offense the last couple seasons. Travis Honeyman's another one last year. And they're still finding ways to score runs, and that's huge. And this is Todd Interdonato's first year at BC. I actually had him on my podcast. It was the beginning of February. Really good guy. And I talked a lot to him about, what his strategy is. Since Wofford, the last 3 years, was consistently top 5 in the country in stolen bases. They were also number 1 last year in sacrifice bunts in all of Division I baseball by, I think it was like 30 more than any other program in the country. And so I asked him, what was your strategy? Like, why do you guys like playing small ball? Which I love it, but not every coach likes to bunt. They don't like to give up outs. But it's all about positioning, he said. And he was talking about how it's important to get guys moving on the base paths. Sometimes a great bunt can be a hit as well. It's not always like a giving up an out.
So speaking of bunts, Cam Leary yesterday in the game, probably one of the turning points of the game for BC. Let's hear that. So that was a bunt that generated a run for Boston College, and it was just an unreal awareness for Leary to do that. And as you were saying, just continuing on about Interdonato and his philosophy about bunting, he is doing something because that bunt is one of the best bunts I've ever seen.
Yeah. It was clutch, big situation. BC needed something to get going on offense. And he was talking about how it's not always about giving up an out. It's about positioning, getting guys moving. Like you see in that play there, it's like you're forcing the defense to still make a play. You're also giving a chance to advance a runner, which is a big part of baseball. And he was saying how it wasn't always about, offense being, playing small ball. He likes guys that can hit home runs. It wasn't like, he wants all his guys to bunt and be singles hitters. He still likes power hitters, but he was saying he wants every one of his guys 1 through 9 to know how to bunt, know when to steal a base, and that's a big part of baseball. And you're seeing that already in the Todd Interdonato era. They're 5-2, stealing some bases as well. Yesterday they only had 1 stolen base, so it wasn't like stealing bases was a big part of yesterday's win. But regardless, they still found a way to win that game. 5-2 to begin the season. We'll be playing William and Mary today, a team that's been decent in the CAA the last few years. I'm not really too sure what their record is, but I go to a lot of Northeastern baseball games, and they've had a couple competitive games with Northeastern over the last few years. But what I'm really excited about with this BC team is they're pitching well for, in some games, they've had some off games. 7 games in, you're not going to have 7 gems. But 4 games, they had really good pitching.
We've had 2 gems.
2 gems, yeah.
2 gems. John West, 6 innings of scoreless baseball yesterday. And then, of course, there was the Tyler Mudd legacy game in his first game as an Eagle. Going
legacy.
5.
I like it. No, I like it. I like it, though. Why not?
5 innings, no hits for him in that win. Again, I think it was Ohio State who we were playing in that game.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but you got it. 2 really, really great games from BC pitchers so far this season. In a very young season so far, BC starting off the season 4-2. Solid start for the Eagles.
Absolutely. And I think when they looked at their schedule, which this was something I was talking to them about, I said, you're starting out with a good amount of Power 5 opponents, which in baseball, there's always mid-major teams that are very good they're not really mid-major in baseball. They're good programs. Wofford was one of them. Northeastern, Coastal Carolina. Technically they're mid-major because they're not a Power 5 school, but in college baseball, they're very competitive and very good. So there's not really a mid-major thing, I'd say, in college baseball, just teams that, are under the radar. And BC opened up with 3 Power 5 opponents right away. Ohio State, Kansas State, and Cal Berkeley. So that's not an easy start to the schedule. I talked to him about that, and he said he loves that. He was happy they were starting with, big opponents because you can get things rolling right away. If you can beat a big opponent right away to start the season, that's momentum. And even if you lose your first game of the year, it doesn't mean you're done. You play 50 or 60 games for a reason. It's great to start out the season beating a big opponent, not just beating up on, just some random school that you paid to come play you, which that's not really the case here. BC, they start out the season in a warm environment. So it's more like a football thing, or a basketball thing, you're paying an opponent to come. But regardless, they could have played a small school to begin the season, but they didn't. They, went up against big opponents. That's obviously a big way that they started the season, starting out 5-2. And I'm excited to see what they do. William and Mary and VCU, those are obviously opponents that BC probably should beat, but they're, respectable teams. And the same thing goes for UNCW, North Carolina, Wilmington. They're typically very good, knowing them playing Northeastern over the last few years. But then after that, this is when I'm really interested to see what happens with BC. They play NC State next Friday, March 8th. 3-game series in Raleigh. Can BC find a way to win 2 of those games? That would be a huge, huge series for BC if they could do that.
And I think that, is NC State ranked at this moment?
I believe so, yes.
So NC State's ranked. If BC takes that series, do you think that earns them a spot in the rankings?
I think they are right there if they do win that.
If BC's like, what, 6 and 3?
Yeah, roughly. Let's see. So right now they are, 5-2, I said, right? So
yep.
let's say they beat VCU and
they're
Mary.
4-2 right now.
4-2, okay.
Are they 4-2?
I believe it's 5-2, right?
5-2.
5-2. But if they were to win, against VCU and William and Mary, and then win 2 of 3 against NC State, that would be 4 wins right there. They'd be
10-3.
Yeah. So
that's enough to be ranked in my book.
I would say so, especially when you're beating a team like NC State that's been very good over the past couple of years. They gave BC a lot of trouble last year. Yeah. Even though NC State was disappointing in the tournament, I actually had them going to Omaha, and that ended up not happening. But there's a lot of talent on that team at NC State, a lot of great pitchers. I watched Dominic Fritton pitch against BC last year. He was a lefty freshman. I didn't even know his stats at the time. I called their first game. It was a doubleheader on a Saturday. I called the first game. I might have looked at the kid's stats a little, didn't really know too much about him. Then when he got on the mound, he started the second game of the doubleheader. I wasn't calling that game. Saw him pitch, and I remember texting my buddy Dan being like, dude, this kid has first-round stuff. Like, this kid is going to be a beast. And right now he's ranked, heading into the season, the 12th best pitching prospect in college baseball. He's going to be a guy BC goes up against next week, and if BC can find a way to score 4 or 5 runs against him, which BC had a lot of success against him last year, made things tough on him at BC, then that would be a great telltale sign to me saying, okay, BC's offense is going to be very good this season.
Absolutely.
It's early in the year. Even if you had a bad weekend next weekend, doesn't mean you're done. But if you're beating a team like NC State, a team that's been very respected in college baseball the last few years, a team that even was in the Omaha, College World Series a couple years ago, one of the Final Four teams left. I believe it was in that 2021 season when they got kicked out because of a COVID outbreak on their team. They were a very good team then, and there's still some teams, some players on that team that are still there. Like Kozak, the catcher, is very good. He's probably the best catching prospect in all college baseball. There's a lot of talent on the team. I'm excited to see what they do next week. What do you think BC can do? You think they can win 2 games?
I think so. I think that the Bats have proven that they're there. They can get a lot of hits. They scored 17 runs in a game, 12 runs, 9 runs, 7 runs. And those are just like average games for them. They scored 6 runs in a loss. It's an age-old story in college baseball or in baseball in general, when you think about teams that are poised to go on long playoff runs. We think of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Their pitching just got outmatched in the World Series against the Rangers this past season. Mm-hmm. And it's all about pitching. It's all about pitching. If you can force the other team to score 3 or less runs in each game, mm-hmm. you're going to have a really good chance to win.
Yeah.
But in games where your pitchers are not really feeling it, they give up 8 to 10 runs. If you're right there with the other team, especially in the later innings, we've been seeing that pop from BC in late innings. Like when we think about the game, I think it was Kansas State.
Yep.
In which we hit a grand slam in the last or the second to last inning, the 8th inning.
8th inning, yeah. Or seventh inning, maybe.
Seventh inning. It's just the clutchness of the BC Bats so far this season, like coming alive in the later stages of the game, is something that I see as a very, very positive sign for this team. It shows that their heads are never out of it. They're always trying for that next run. They can play small ball or they can hit some home runs. Leary's got a few this season. If we look at the exact stats, let me just.
I think he's got 2, right?
Yeah, I think so. And
2, yep.
Nick Wang is just tremendous. He can hit the ball. Like, he has 7 RBIs already on the season. He's got a .517 slugging percentage. So he's got just below 900 OPS this season, which is just fantastic to see. Nick Wang just kind of becoming this really awesome power hitter. He hit a double yesterday for BC that I watched. He's been great.
Yeah, he brings a lot of energy as well, especially that lineup last year. Like, had a lot of clutch home runs, even in the bean pot as well. Just got guys going. And you see him running around the bases. He throws his helmet, he's getting everyone going, pounding his chest, whatever he's doing, just to try to look at the bench, get them all fired up, just to get a spark. And he's been great for them. I think a guy that's been great this season is Vince Cimini. When you look at his career at BC, I believe it was 2 years ago, he suffered a season-ending injury. So heading into last year, which was a senior year, now he's a grad student, I believe. I think he has like a fifth year because of that redshirt year. But suffered an injury a couple years ago. Last year, hit his first home run as an Eagle since he missed a full year and, was never a huge power hitter early in his career at BC. This season, he started out with a home run in each of the first 2 games. And like that's an interesting thing to me is like, they have guys, putting power numbers up like Nick Wang, Cam Leary. These are guys that hit home runs in the past. But you have a guy like Vince Cimini in the middle of your lineup hitting 2 home runs, in the first 2 games of the season, a guy that only hit his first one last season.
Third on the team in hits as well.
Exactly. Like, that's huge. You have a guy that, was a great defensive player, especially earlier on, and 2 home runs. I mean, that's the thing. That's huge for that lineup. And that's why I think that NC State series is going to be huge. Which NC State, I looked at the Division I baseball ranks. I don't think they're ranked there, but I think it was a coaches poll. They're ranked somewhere. 6-2 to start the season. They're a good team. BC's,
it's going to be a challenge.
BC's going to be, obviously against it, facing them. It's going to be a tough series, but that's going to be a big series to determine, okay, can BC compete in the ACC like they did again last year? Like, and last year they lost a lot of talent. We already talked about it, a couple times, and I've mentioned, like, losing Travis Honeyman was a loss, Joe Vitrano was a loss, Chris Flynn on the mound was a loss, even though he started out very hot last year and they tailed off towards the end once they got to ACC play, but
Andrew Roman as well.
Andrew Roman, exactly. They lost talent heading into this year, BC, and they retooled, obviously, kind of changed the way they played the game. They used a little small ball the last couple of years, but into Donato, that's like the main thing he is about. The main thing is small ball baseball, and I talked to him about it. I said, like, you had guys in your team that hit 20 home runs that were still in 20 bases and also still had a good amount of sacrifice bunts. Like, they buy in. Like, how do you get guys to buy into that? And he basically said, like, 1 through 9, it's always about strategy of, trying to move guys up. Sometimes it's a situation where you want to hit and run. Sometimes it's a situation where you just want the runner to stay on first base, hit away, take a pitch. Like, there are strategies that, some coaches would ignore because, I mean, analytics is more a part of the game of baseball now than it was, 20 years ago. Now it's a lot more widely used. But there are things that he does, maybe depending on the count, we'll call, a bunt. If it's 2-0, maybe getting them off, balance and bunting, up the third baseline, trying to steal a base and get a hit. Like, there are so many things to the game of baseball, and I watch BC play now, which I watched probably 3 of their 7 games. I didn't get to watch all of them, unfortunately, but I'll hopefully be able to watch all those NC State games. Since I do like NC State, I'm a fan of them. I've seen them play last season. Besides playing BC, I'd root for them because I thought they played the game well. Obviously have a lot of talent. But there are so many things that Inter Donato does, and that's the thing. And when I look at BC play, he's doing the same things he did at Wofford with BC. He's finding ways to score runs, even in situations where you wouldn't expect BC to score a run with 1 out and a guy on first base. So those are things I'm excited about for BC. I've always been a fan of small ball baseball. Not everybody loves that. I know my dad loves it, and that's probably a big reason I'm a fan of it. But there are things that BC's doing now that it didn't do in years past. And sacrifice bunting with a power hitter like Cam Leary is something you probably wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and I think that Richmond didn't expect it for sure. When they did it, they were kind of expecting the ball to go foul. The third baseman was in no man's land all the way down the third base line, and it was just an easy way to get on base for the BC power hitter. So, as we transition into our highlight of the week, there were a lot to kind of sift through. Giovanni Collada, our awesome lacrosse play-by-play, did a wonderful job against Northwestern on Thursday afternoon. That was an unreal game to listen to, and we're thankful for the opportunity to broadcast it on FM here on WZBC Newton. He did a great job on that, but obviously I think my highlight of the week has to go to Sammy Tabor, Kevin Gell on the call for Nesson last night. Let's hear how it sounded. So that's how that sounded on Nesson last night. I mean, what a finish from Sammy Tabor. Nobody thought that game was going to end in the first overtime period, I'll tell you that much. Myself working the penalty box, my friend James working PA, Sebastian Bravo, another WZBCer, working the other penalty box. We were kind of looking at each other like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to stay here for the night shift, as it was already creeping up to 9 p.m. We got there at 5, so it was like over 4 hours we were there. And Sammy Tabor just has that clutch gene. I mean, she just found the puck, top of the circle, and she just ripped one off the bar and in. It was a tremendous goal that I actually missed live because we ran out of pucks in the penalty box. One of my responsibilities was to give the pucks up when the referee was asking for it. And next thing you know, I'm looking down, I'm putting the pucks in the ice box that we have on the sideline, and all of a sudden everybody's going crazy. The coaches are jumping up and down. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just won the Hockey East Quarters. It was just an unbelievable experience to witness. Such a clutch goal scored by Sammy Tabor. Again, something about that penalty box, as Kate Ham and Sammy Tabor both spent 2 minutes in the sin bin. And I got a chance to talk to Sammy, and I was like, hey, you had a heck of a season. I mean, rookie of the month, like every month it seemed like, just a tremendously skilled player. They also trust her on the penalty kill. She blocked a lot of shots. She got back on the back check almost every time, something that a lot of forwards on the team struggled with, it seemed. The forwards had a bit of a rough time getting back on defense. A little less structure than I would be used to seeing, but even so, Grace Campbell making 46 saves.
Got it.
46 saves in that game. It's just unbelievable to watch, and just a very exciting game at the very least, and I'm glad that Gell got such a great call on that goal.
Absolutely, it was a great call. I think the best part of that call was, like, obviously the call's great, and then you just get to hear the music, get to see BC, like, all cheering. Like, he kind of just let everyone just enjoy the moment, obviously, and just see it for themselves. Like, after the goal, calls it, says, big goal, obviously, and says Sammy Tabor, but he let, the atmosphere speak for itself, which was great. And Sammy Tabor's had a great year. Freshman, 13 goals, leads the team in goals, leads the team in points with 31. Best plus-minus on the team as well, plus 15. And only a freshman, which is just crazy.
Yeah. In a year that I thought was going to be a total wash for Boston College women's hockey, because they lost their three out of their four best players after last season. Hannah Bilka transferring, Kayla Barnes transferring, and as well as Abby Levy going to the PWHL, being that backup goalie for the New York PWHL team. Great for her. She's awesome. Great person, I've heard. Also a fantastic goalie, but Grace Campbell stepping up huge for BC. Abby Newhook and Gabby Roy, the leadership group for that team, is very, very poised. We know Abby Newhook has a tremendous snapshot that seemingly goes in most of the time. She's a tremendous power forward for that team. She also has great hands. She seems to be stronger than everyone else on the ice. But freshmen like Pellerin and Molly Jordan, who has been fantastic for this team. She has great hands as well. She's kind of stepped up in that Kayla Barnes-esque role for this team. She reminds me of Kayla Barnes a lot, and I think that she's going to get called to the USA national team one of these years. I can see the same for Abby Newhook getting called for a Canadian women's national team in one of these years as well, as she is just a fantastic player. Sammy Tabor as well, making her claim at a women's hockey team that I thought wasn't really going to do much this season. They have something to celebrate right now. So
absolutely,
that's great progress for the team.
Absolutely, they're now in the semifinals of the Hockey East tournament, so there's a chance they could potentially make the tournament. If they were to win the Hockey East tournament, they could make the Frozen Four tournament for women, which would be great, which would be awesome. And you wouldn't expect that, like you said. I mean, on an 0-5-1 stretch, you probably wouldn't expect them to find a way to win, especially a gritty game like that 2-1. Like, I feel like when you lose 6 games in a row, just the morale's down, and it's hard to stay locked in, especially for 78 minutes, basically. But they found a way to do it. And I wish I got to watch that game live, honestly. Just seeing, like, highlights, I feel like that takes away from it, because I feel like when you're watching it live, especially a game like that, just a goalie duel, 2-1 final, like, highlights really don't do that game justice. So being able to sit there and watch it, I'm sure, it was a great game, very entertaining to watch, and a big win for BC. Hopefully they can find a way to keep this momentum running. And you look at that men's ice hockey program this season as well, like, BC is doing well, and that's why it was a great Friday night, like Blake James said, and like you noted at the beginning of the broadcast here in the studio.
Yeah. So let's get into some of that men's hockey stuff. Number 1 ranked Eagles played against UNH last night. This was Cutter's second goal of the night. That goal, I don't know if you saw it, but I can show you.
I saw that right off the face-off.
Off the face-off. How the heck did he even get that one off? Like,
ridiculous.
I didn't even see him release it. His shot has been said to be the best in NCAA hockey right now, and best in all of, like, when you're talking about prospects. for NHL teams. I don't think there's a shot that's better than Cutter Gauthier's. What do you think?
I would probably agree. Like, I think BC, they're just so stacked. Like, if you look at that play there, that goal that we just played, like, Will Smith wins the faceoff, perfectly angles it to Cutter Gauthier, has a great shot, and obviously you want to give a guy like Gauthier that opportunity to shoot, especially when he has an angle right at the point. Like that's where he does best. Or even in the slot, like he can score from anywhere. Yeah. That's the thing. Like I'm not going to take away from his game and say he's only can score in one dimension. Like, he could score anywhere on the ice, but right there is his wheelhouse where he wants to shoot from. And
top of the circle.
Absolutely, and I'd say he's probably got the best shot right now in college hockey. And I think when you look at college hockey, a lot of the time you got to look at who teams are playing against. Sometimes they're in smaller conference and not playing as great a competition. The Hockey East is really tough this season, and Gauthier continues to find ways to score, and he's a big reason BC's won 12 of the last 13 games. Their only loss over that stretch being in the Beanpot, which it's just crazy. They won 7 games in a row now.
11 straight Hockey East victories is the highest mark since Boston College had Johnny Hockey himself.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's a great stat. So things are really rolling for the Eagles right now, and I think Gauthier might have the best shot, obviously, on the team. Gaudier's been great this season. I think Ryan Leonard, even though it's probably easy to say he's the best player on the team, or one of them, just because of how hot he's been over the past month or two, but I think Ryan Leonard's a better player, honestly, and that's the crazy thing to say is because, when you watch Gauthier play, Will Smith, Perreault, they're all so good. It's hard to pick just one guy there, but I think Leonard is the best player on the team. But with it being said, though, Gauthier, right now, especially with the way he's been rolling all season long, Ryan Leonard's really got going over the last couple months. He's right there in goals. I think he's third right now in college hockey. Gaudier's one. But I'd say Leonard's the best player, and it's just crazy when you watch Gauthier play, you can think anyone's better than him. You know what I mean? That's how good they are this year. Is there's just so much talent.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the best? Probably Gauthier? Or
I would say Cutter's the best player, followed by Gabe Perreault, who...
Okay, that's good,
My take about Gabe Perreault is that him and Connor Bedard, very, very similar hockey players in the way that they know where everyone is on the ice. They have fantastic hockey sense. You can tell that Gabe Perreault is the son of an NHLer just by watching him play. I mean, when I play in my rec league, I'm trying to emulate what I see on the ice from Gabe Perreault. The way that he holds his stick, the way that he positions himself on the ice is just amazing to watch. And I mean, Greg Brown just has such a privilege of coaching such a stacked hockey team. Speaking of Ryan Leonard, though, let's hear what his second goal of the night sounded like on the power play. So Ryan Leonard just has a great shot as well. One of the underrated parts of his game that was, you could see it at the beginning of the season. Ryan Leonard was on a heater scoring a bunch of goals. He cooled down a little bit of about the third month of the season, but now he's back producing like he was, shushing crowds in Sweden. He is a spark plug for this BC offense, and every day I watch Ryan Leonard, I'm like, oh boy, I don't really think he's going to stay with us next year.
I think he's to the NHL. I mean, you look at the last 7 games, he's got 11 goals, 4 assists. It doesn't always come down to points and stats. Cutter Gauthier could have probably left last year and went to the Flyers, but obviously it's not something he wanted to do, so he stayed at BC. But he probably knew this season was going to be special and BC had a chance of winning the national championship. But I think Ryan Leonard will be in the NHL next year. I don't expect him to come back. I'd be surprised if he came back just because of how good he is and how crisp he is. And Perreault, like you said, I think Perreault, similar to Bedard, just very crisp on the ice.
Yeah.
Very crisp. Stick handling, skating. It just seems like they're just just naturally going without even they're putting effort in, you know?
Yeah, and the way that he can grab the puck out of midair with his stick and perfectly lay it right in front of him, and the way that he blocks shots, and the way that he kills penalties, and the way that he pokes the puck off other people's sticks, he says, that's mine, give it to me. And then he goes and he takes it, and he has the skill and the poise to do so at such a young age.
Yeah.
If you want to weigh in on your thoughts on BC hockey, call us at 617-552-4686. 617-552-4686. We're talking BC men's hockey here on WZBC Newton. Cutter Gauthier for Hobey Baker. That was my theme of last night. WZBC Sports tweeted, everybody spam the comments of this tweet with Cutter for Hobey or I'm going to lose it. Because he deserves the Hobey Baker Award. For how many goals that he's scoring? He's scoring goals at a torrential pace.
Yeah, 29 goals this season, number 1 in college hockey. 31. 29 heading into last night, 31 now. You're right. 31 goals. He's been ridiculous, and I'm not trying to take away from thinking Ryan Leonard's a better player. I just feel like talent-wise, they're both great, so it's really hard to pick between the two. But I think when I watch Ryan Leonard play, I think he's going to translate very well to the NHL. I think Gauthier will as well, but I think Ryan Leonard right away is going to step in and be a stud. But
I think Ryan Leonard has the potential to be as good as Matt or Brady Tkachuk in the NHL.
I would agree.
I think he's going to need a little bit of time. He is a smaller guy.
Yeah, just like 6 foot.
I mean, yeah, but I don't really think that he's like necessarily big enough to play in the NHL right now. I think he definitely has to hit the weight room.
Against the boards would be tough in the NHL. He'd get hit pretty hard there.
Again, though, he has this mentality that few players have. That mentality, I'm gonna beat you by stick handling, passing, and shooting, but I'm also gonna get in your head and make you want to throw me into the boards or fight me or whatever you may do. We were talking about fights in college hockey last week with that ASU fight out of the penalty box last weekend. But in the NHL, people are really going to want a piece of Ryan Leonard, and I think that the Capitals are the perfect place for him to go because who do the Capitals have? Tom Wilson.
Yeah.
You know?
Loves fighting.
Tom Wilson is a guy who can protect Ryan Leonard. Alex Ovechkin, a guy who can protect Ryan Leonard, take Ryan Leonard under his wing. A guy like Tom Wilson will. I think that he's great. He's a leader. He's great as a player, and he has the very same similar mental game that Ryan Leonard has. So I'm very excited to watch, or not excited, from the perspective of an Islander fan, to watch Ryan Leonard play against my Islanders, and just to shine in the NHL, because I do really think that he is going to earn a spot on the Capitals next season. As I look at the goals for the NCAA right now, Cutter Gauthier, 31 goals, 20 assists, 51 points. Let's see. Will Smith has the lead in points of the entire country with 54. Cutter Gauthier is second. When we talk about points per game, Will Smith is first, Gabe Perreault second, Macklin Celebrini is third. If you want to pander to the NHL elites, number 1 overall pick deserves the Hobey Baker. Fine, give it to Macklin Celebrini, but that is just nonsense in my opinion. I do not think that Macklin Celebrini deserves the Hobey Baker. I think he's the entire reason why BU is as good as they are, however, which is a good argument for giving Macklin Celebrini the Hobey Baker, but I really think that the way that Cutter has improved in his defensive game and his goal scoring as well is just, there'd be no excuse not to give it to him because of how well he plays on all sides of the puck. He's improved on a vast margin last season with Cutter. Oh, we've got a call coming in here discussing BC hockey.
My dad calling in.
All right, let's hear what he has to say. Hello, you're on WZBC Newton. How you doing today? Oh, thank you for calling in. Thank you. And what's your name and where are you from?
My name's Paul. I'm calling from South Boston.
Oh, nice. Paul from South Boston. What is your take today?
My take today is I'm at the point where anything less than a NCAA college hockey championship will be a letdown. They look so good. I don't think anybody's going to outscore them, and I think Jacob Fowler has had a great year, and he could be the difference of going all the way or getting beat somewhere. How do you guys feel about the play of Fowler this far?
Oh, yeah. Fowler has been unbelievable. He's been so refreshing to watch as a BC fan, going through 2 graduate student transfers these past 2 seasons. Fowler, the way that he's so poised as a freshman it speaks volumes to just how he is as a person. He's a tremendous person. I've talked to him a few times. He also tracks the puck so well, and he seems to always be so dialed in. What are your thoughts, Joey?
I would agree. I think even in those big games against BU, even UNH, like UNH has been very, competitive this season. They beat Maine twice last weekend. Last night's a big game at UNH. They were kind of rolling 3 of the last 4 games, UNH, and he went in there, found a way to win 5-3. And I think in a lot of those games, it's easy to get in your head when you're playing BU and you're facing a 2-on-1. Like, it's tough. And I think in that Beanpot game even, like, a couple of those goals weren't his fault. Like, Celebrini just had a great look. The defense wasn't really in positioning. Can't really blame him. So you might look at the stat sheet and say, okay, he did give up, 4 or 5 goals in that game to BU. But I wouldn't blame him for that. I think he's a big difference maker for this team. And when you look at, and I already mentioned that I thought Ryan Linder was the best player on the team. Like, there are so many guys that are in consideration for the best player on this team because of how good and how stacked they are. You could say Perreault, you could say Smith, you could say Leonard, you could say Fowler. Like, that's just how stacked they are. And I'll see what my dad thinks. Paul, what would you say is the best? Who would you say is the best player in this team?
That's a real tough question. You guys just gave half the lineup. The only I can say about it, I think Fowler gets the least. He gets the least amount of praise, but the offensive skills that we have and the defensive skills that we have, I mean, they just overshadow everything else. I mean, obviously they had a unanimous ranking for first place in the country. That hasn't happened too many times that I can remember. All 50 first place votes. So I just can't wait for the playoffs to start, and I think this team is really poised for a deep run and ultimately a national championship. And Jacob Fowler will be as big a difference as anybody that skates in front of him.
Yeah, thank you for calling in, Paul. We
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and have a great rest of your day. So,
Take care. Yeah, thank you for calling in. That was awesome.
That was a great caller. Also, sounded pretty good. We've been having some technical difficulties.
It did sound clear.
Callers on the air recently, but that sounded great. But yeah, Jacob Fowler. I mean, I've said it unheard. I'll say it on the air. I don't care. Jacob Fowler is my favorite person at this school.
Wow.
He saved us in terms of hockey. He saved us a whole lot of goals against. When we think about our games against BU, Jacob Fowler, MVP of both of those games that we beat BU.
Absolutely,
at home and away.
Definitely.
So he has just been a hero for Boston College.
And they've needed someone to step up. Like you said, 2 graduate transfers 2 years in a row. I liked Eric Dopp a couple years ago. Like, was obviously a very streaky goalie. I feel like just deflections were an automatic goal against him. If he didn't cover up the puck, like, it was deflected off him right out in front, right to the point, right in the slot. Like, it was a goal a good amount of the time, it felt like. But he really stepped up the last, 5-6 games of the season. BC even won a couple of hockey's tournament games. Then last year, the transfer goalie that came in from Colgate, was it Benson, right? Mitch Benson. He was all right. I at the end of the day, neither one of these guys were difference makers in winning games, at least more of the time than not. And when you look at Fowler, though, he is a difference maker in a lot of these wins. Like, the offense is great. BC is going to score 4 or 5 goals, probably, more games than they are not going to score 4 goals. But you're not going to always have that. You're going to have 1-2, 2-1 nights, 1-0 nights, 1 out of every 8-10 games. And you can rely on a guy like Fowler in those games. And BC's defense is great as well. Jacob Bengston's always in right positioning. Eamon Powell as well. Like, they have good vets on this team. Those are 2 guys that have been in college hockey, which Powell's been here, and then Bengston came from Lake Superior State. Guys that are experienced, though, are huge to have on a team with all these young guys that are freshmen and sophomores, like Gauthier is a sophomore, and the freshman 3. It's good to have veteran leaders on this team. Fowler's only a freshman, but he doesn't play like that. And I think partly it's because of the defense. The guys in front of him, Bengston, probably Powell, they give him some confidence and probably have helped him, along the process. And Greg Brown has done very well at keeping, him locked into games. It's easy when you're playing BU and you're facing a 2-on-1 with Mack and Celebrini being one of those 2 guys. And I think it was Jack Hughes and the Beanpot had a chance at scoring on a 2-on-1. It's easy to just get in your head and just think, it's an automatic goal. But that's not the case with Fowler. And like you said, I mean, I've never actually talked to him, but seems like a great kid when I heard him speak in one of the post-game interviews. And excited to see what BC does this year. And hopefully he stays. I'd imagine he stays for next year.
I am a huge supporter of giving college hockey goalies at least 3 years to develop their skill set and their poise, because it takes a while for a goalie to become an NHL goalie. When we think of a guy like Carey Price, he obviously is the outlier there, but you don't often see Carey Price, like a guy who can step in at a very, very young age and play significant minutes in the NHL. Like, we have to remember, only 30, if we make the national championship, about 42 games, maybe less, that you're playing in a season. You got to play, 82 games in the NHL?
A lot. Yeah,
as
even
a
if you
goalie,
split in
especially if you're
45
splitting
games.
45 games of NHL hockey is a lot. I think that it even got to a guy like Devin Levi, who
It's
we
my
thought
buddy,
was
yeah.
for sure lock to be in the NHL. He's gonna, it's gonna take a little bit of time. He still has that elite skill set, but it's gonna take him some time to actually become that NHL goalie that he is set to become. So I see the same thing for Fowler. I think that Montreal Canadiens fans have a lot to be excited about when it comes to their future in net, and I think that Jacob Fowler will man the pipes for them at some point.
Absolutely. I think you said it perfectly about Devin Levi. With Levi, saw him play a lot at Northeastern, and I know I'm on a BC radio station here, but I did grow up a Northeastern hockey fan just because I had 4 siblings that went to Northeastern. So I went to a lot of games, especially the last few years, got really locked in, met Levi a couple times, really nice guy. One of my friends that will be coming to the studio in a few minutes, Mark Walsh, we're actually going to play his song at the end of this radio segment. But when I met Devin Levi with him, we talked to him a couple times. He gave us the time of day, talked for a few minutes, and at the time, he was the best goalie in college hockey.
Yeah.
He, just has to take a picture if he wants and then can just leave. He doesn't have to, sit and talk while his team's getting on the bus. But he did. We were lucky enough to speak to him. We just said, you're a great goalie, and obviously he knows the talent's there. But when you go to a team like Buffalo, especially a team that's invested in their defense, whether it's paying guys, drafting guys high, it just hasn't worked out, and I feel like a lot of time it's not his fault. That's probably a little bit of a bias just because I'm a big fan of his. Saw him play a lot at Northeastern.
No, definitely not his fault. He's having actually a tremendous stretch in the AHL right now.
He is.
For I think it's Rochester.
Rochester, yeah, you got it right.
So he's on a tear, along with our good friends Trevor Kuntard, Mark McLaughlin, and as well as Nikita Nesterenko and
Yes.
Drew Hellison, tearing it up in the AHL right now. All poised to, maybe make the team at the end of the year if we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks. Nikita Nesterenko, maybe he'll get another shot at the end of this season.
I hope so. That's a team that's young, that's obviously on the rise and building, and now they got Cutter Gauthier as well in a trade whenever he decides to leave BC. But like you just mentioned, though, about Mark McLaughlin being a guy you talked about. He was a guy that actually was just called up by the Bruins yesterday. I think it was on emergency purposes is what it said in the report that I read online on Twitter. But at some point, though, he probably will get another opportunity. He's a guy that I'm a big fan of. My dad, huge fan of Mark McLaughlin. He's a guy that just hasn't really gotten a great opportunity in Boston just because of how much talent they have, on their current roster. And even a guy like Aidan McDonough, a guy that was great on Northeastern.
Yeah.
He hasn't really gotten an opportunity in Vancouver just because how good they are playing this season. He hasn't had a great, year in the AHL, battled some injuries, but the talent is there. He's going to, I think, figure things out at some point. But it's tough for guys that are great in college hockey, like McLaughlin and McDonough. They were 2 of the probably top 5 players in college hockey 2 years ago. They both make it to the NHL, play at the end of the season, when they made it up. From leaving, BC and Northeastern, and then now they are in the AHL just because of the talent that's in front of them. It's just really hard to make it.
Yeah. Devin Levi, by the way, 249 goals against average, 927 save percentage in 11 AHL games this season. So,
yeah, he's a great player.
Great season for him. He was drafted actually in the 7th round.
He was.
To the Florida Panthers. Wow.
They had to make a decision between Spencer Knight and Levi. They chose Spencer Knight, which Spencer Knight, another great college hockey goalie. Like both guys were great prospects. They had to make a decision on one since they had Bobrovsky already on a big contract. So they went with keeping Knight because he was a little bit more established at that point than Levi was, although he was really good in the World Juniors heading into his freshman year. But they made a decision and ended up going with Spencer Knight, which it's hard to pick between those 2 goalies because they were both so good in college. It's it's hard. It's a great position to be in, though, having to choose between 2 great goalies,
Yeah. Spencer Knight having a bit of a rocky start to his AHL career. He is 18-12-4 this season. Again, he's a guy who left BC after his freshman year to go play in the NHL, and he just wasn't really ready to play in the league. And it's unfortunate, but I'm sure he'll get back to that moment, that point in his career where he's good enough to play in the NHL. I think that he has that raw talent to play in the NHL as well. So, I wanted to get to this kind of special segment. I am very upset about Fanatics as a company. I don't understand how they got so big. I don't understand, as I Google them right now, I don't understand where they came from. If you know anything about the history of Fanatics, please call in and tell me, because I don't know where they came from. All of a sudden, they're the official gear provider of the NHL, of the NFL, of the MLB. I don't understand. And now people are using them to be their official jersey providers, but I haven't met anybody who thinks that they make anything of quality. I just don't understand where they came from, how they got so much money, why everybody's paying them. It's like, okay, yeah, we found a way to make gear that is not only more expensive, but also worse quality. So it's cheaper to make, obviously, because you wear one of these jerseys and you can't even tell. It feels like a penny. It's just gross. And now in the MLB, they use Fanatics jerseys, and you can see through the pants. It's like, come on. We're professionals here. Baseball is a sport that you just can't ruin like that. You just can't. But Fanatics somehow has just become the face of all of these different leagues. For no reason. They don't make anything good. And now I have to be an NHL fan. And I have to watch these guys skate around in Fanatics jerseys. They stink. They stink. That's all I'm going to say. I don't understand where they came from. I don't want to know. But they need to be gone. And we need to go back to Adidas or whatever. Even Reebok was making better jerseys than Fanatics. New Balance making better jerseys than Fanatics. It's gross. I don't understand. It's gross mismanagement. You can tell that they're trying to cut corners. It's just not fun for anyone involved. As I sit here in the WZBC Newton studio, let's get into some BC women's lacrosse. So, BC unfortunately fell against Northwestern, national title rematch. One thing that I want to note is I was watching and listening live on WZBC Newton. Actually, Giovanni Collada and Brendan Mahoney were on the call for that game. They did a great job, first of all. I mean, I thought it was the best WZBC broadcast of my college career here to listen to. It was a fantastic milestone for those two gentlemen to broadcast that game. But Northwestern looks really good. Like, really, really good. They're going to be a hard team to beat. If we're talking about winning a national championship for BC lacrosse, like, it's not gonna be an easy battle for them at all. It's gonna be very tough to beat a team like Northwestern in a game that means so much more to everyone involved. But we've got some guests in the studio now that I'm just joined with here. If you guys want to introduce yourselves really quickly, your mics are turned on. What's going on, guys?
Introduce yourselves, yeah, why not?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Phat Hosea.
I'm Mark Walsh, and yeah, I'm very honored to be in the studio today.
So, two of my friends, both of them have songs on Spotify you guys can check out. Mark Walsh on Spotify, Phat Hosea on Spotify. That's Phat Hosea, Hosea. Check them out on Spotify. Have them in the studio since we're going to play this song at the end of this radio segment, which is great. Jacob was nice enough to let them come in the studio, which was awesome. So thank you for this opportunity. I mean, they've been doing a lot with music, especially over the last year now, really taking it a lot more serious. Have 55,000 streams on their most recent song they put out together, The One, which is a song we're actually going to play in just like 15 minutes, probably 10 to 15 minutes. So thank you, Jacob, for letting them come in the studio. And they're both from Boston.
Yeah.
You guys can say where you're from. I'll let you guys say it.
Yeah, from Dorchester.
Nice.
Big BC hockey fan.
Can't say the same. I'm a student at Northeastern, but yeah, I'm very happy to be here. I mean, we've been making music for a little while now, and done a few shows over the last few months, and it's been a lot of fun. But very, very happy to be in here today and be where we are right now.
Yeah. When you talk about your shows that you've done, like where have you guys done shows?
Yeah, we did one at the Sonia in Cambridge at the beginning of the year, and then we did one up in Vermont. Then just last night we did one at the Rockwood. We opened up for Louis Bello, who is another local artist.
Nice.
But yeah, we've just been trying to do as many shows in as many different places as we can. Right, planning stuff in New York, and then hopefully some other stuff too. So
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think the run that we're on right now kind of started when we performed on a boat over the summer. We sold out, what was it, 200-something tickets?
Yeah.
200-something tickets I think we sold, and yeah, it was just a great night all together. Got to perform with a couple of the local acts, DJ Do and Shay, and it was just a really, really fun night all around.
This is awesome, though.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got one more question for you guys. What is your opinion on the Boston kind of underground, like Berkeley kind of concert basement vibe right now?
I think it's awesome. I think those type of shows in like the gritty venues is like, it's the best. Like I don't ever really want to do like a nice established like venue.
Yeah.
I like the gritty ones and the ones that you kind of gotta earn it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the shows that we've been doing and everything like that have been just really an honor to play, and all the little venues that we've done, just being able to sell tickets and do what we love has been awesome. But I think in terms of the scene in Boston, I mean, I did programs at Berkeley High School and whatnot, and I have friends who graduated from there and they're touring and doing their thing. But I'd love to have even more of a underground music scene in Boston, and continue to grow and branch out what we've been doing, and have other local acts on the boat and have a ball.
Yeah, of course. Where do you guys record your stuff?
In my bedroom, which
Awesome.
is hilarious. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a nice setup though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Been investing in it over the years, and Ryan's done most of the legwork on that. But it's been really cool to build it up and hear our sound improve, and helping other artists too.
Absolutely. And I think it's great what you guys have done, especially taking it like more serious. But you guys were serious about music, 2 or 3 years ago. But I feel like over the last year, you guys are really growing, your discography. You put out more songs. You're recording more songs than ever. And even though I think you should put out more than you have, because I think you guys both have great songs in the vault. Like, it's great that you guys are putting in the work. And I think it goes with anything, people do, whether it's, you're passionate about radio, music, sports. Like, when you put in more time and more effort like you guys have, which it's obviously great. And even Jacob, we were talking before we came in here, like, he's done so many great things with the radio station here. He's actually interning as well at WEI. Like, when you're doing things you're passionate about, like, it's just awesome. And I'm just proud of you guys for what you're doing, truly.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll play a song in just about, 10 minutes. But are we going to get new music soon? I know you guys have some songs ready to go.
We're working on a project together that we'll probably release at the beginning of the summer, sometime around there. So that's probably going to be our best, releases coming up.
Yeah, definitely excited for that one. I mean, we've been making music together for so long, and I think just really trying to perfect the craft, and that's a big thing that I'd be very excited to do, and just very happy with the way things have been going, and just want to keep it in motion.
Hopefully one day we can get you guys a live performance on air, a live song.
Yeah.
We'll get the guitar and everything.
We do in-studio concerts here at WZBC, so
we could do that.
Anytime.
Nirvana actually did play here.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a fun
sick.
fact.
That's legendary.
Apparently Kanye West was here one time. I don't know why, but apparently he was here. I'm not sure when or how, but
I buy it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's
I
sick
know,
though.
right?
That'd be cool though. We could get one song. They could bring the guitar in, whatever it may be, and one
Anytime.
quick one.
Yeah.
And you guys know you're capable of doing it live on air. I know before Ryan, like last year, when I wanted to do one, he was like, I don't know about live on air. I'm like, dude, you sing at concerts anyways. Like, like it's the same thing.
Especially too, now that we've performed more, and I've had to face the fact that if I want to do this, I gotta sing in front of people.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely more comfortable now, and I think it's something we could probably do.
Mm.
We could definitely do. It's not a probably.
Absolutely.
Definitely do. 100%.
Yeah, what was it like at the beginning when you talk about singing in front of people? What was that like?
I think for both of us, it was like really scary
Definitely.
to start. Like him especially. I remember he was like never singing.
Yeah.
And I like kind of was like, dude, you got to start singing. And he wouldn't even sing in front of me. And I was like, bro, like I know you can sing. The way he played guitar, I was like, there's no way you can't sing. So he sang one day, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then I kind of just I started off rapping because I couldn't sing at all.
Phat Hosea, first song.
Phat Hosea, that was a banger.
Came a long way since then, but yeah, I mean, it definitely is nerve-wracking, and for me, I played guitar my whole life, and I was just a guitar player, I played in different bands and whatnot, and I never sang, and then all of a sudden that changed, and just singing every day pretty much, over the years, and just listening to myself over and just building up that confidence. We've come a long way, and it's been a lot of fun, and especially to do it together. I mean, there's no better honor, honestly.
Yeah, and being best friends too. Like he pushed me to start taking it more serious, and I've been pushing him too. So I think as long as we keep holding each other accountable, there's no way we don't keep this going and keep growing and keep having a good time. The best thing is, like, we're doing it with all our friends. Like, Joey sees it all the time. Like, everyone around us is one of our friends, like, one of our pretty much brothers at this point. Like, we're always together, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're
It's
close.
nice to be able to do it with the people that you're closest with, too. And, like, we're very lucky with the friends we have. Like, not everyone has a friend group as solid as ours, so.
Yeah, and people are
That-
supportive, so
yeah,
definitely
like, that's
thankful
why
for
our
all you
music
guys.
is able to be, like, you know, so good, because, like, we have that camaraderie and support from our closest people.
Yeah, and we
Absolutely.
built relationships, you know, in different ways. Like me and Ryan Phat Hosea were related. Me and Mark went to school together in 4th grade. Jose,
sir.
right hand to my left, he played college baseball with Ryan at St. Michael's College in Vermont. So
Nice.
a lot of connections you make, you know, over your life. And obviously we're really lucky to have a tight-knit group. And I'll let Jose come in and say what's up. I'll let you say what's up. You say your name and where you're from.
What's good, y'all? My name is Jose Martinez. I'm from Manhattan, New York. LES. Shout out
Same.
LES.
Good.
It's been a privilege to be out here with the boys, you know. They're grinding. Their music's coming along, and it's really just been a fun ride.
New York and New York, you and Jacob.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
also
sir.
am from Manhattan. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in New Jersey, Blair Academy,
Oh, word.
boarding
word,
school type, yeah.
Word.
What about you?
I went to this like random school called Browning.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of sucked, but it's all good.
Hey, you made it out. You made it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're at
Yeah.
BC. I mean, you made it out. You did well for yourself.
Facts.
You know, which is great.
Happy to be here at Boston College. You know.
Absolutely.
My dream school.
Ryan's been the biggest BC hockey fan,
Yeah.
besides my dad,
When
since
I
I
was
was, what,
Wait,
2 or
Wait,
3?
all right, who's your favorite BC hockey player of all time?
Gaudreau, probably.
I don't know. I'd say one of the Hazes.
Oh,
or
yeah.
John Muse, though. No, John
see.
Muse. He was the goalie when they won the national championship.
Okay.
You know, that's definitely my favorite. Like, John Muse, 100% is my favorite BC hockey player of all time.
Hannafin, too, you liked all
No,
those
Hannah
guys.
was dirty.
I'm going to go with Chris Kreider.
Oh,
Kreider.
word.
Kreider's a
I'm
great
not
one.
gonna lie.
Good
Back
choice.
in the day, watching the Beanpot and just seeing him do his thing, he was something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely loved his BC hockey career.
He is the archetype for a guy like Cutter, even like just to be so gritty with the puck, being able to shoot, being able to drive the net, being able to tip, like doing all that, putting it all together. It's something that is really special to watch. I'm an Islander fan, but I still root,
Wahlstrom.
I still root for Chris Kreider and of course Oliver Wahlstrom.
Boston's
But-
good. He was great at
Absolutely.
BC, talented.
Yeah.
But obviously, in the NHL, he hasn't really panned out
Yeah.
completely. But he's had stretches where he's good.
Yeah.
He's had stretches where he really, is showing what he can do. But obviously, tough being, 3rd line, 4th line. I know he's first line at some point, though. They moved him up with injuries and stuff. I remember just
Yeah.
trying to, pair him with, who was it at the top? Might have been Brock
Barzal
Nelson.
and
Or Barzell,
Horvat.
yeah.
But, he's a guy who I wish was doing a bit more, but it's all good. He went to BC.
He
It's
did.
Good to root for those BC guys in the NHL.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It's crazy also being at, like, Conti Forum and then looking around the walls and seeing how many players are actually in the NHL from BC. Like, you never know who you're going to be seeing when you
Yeah.
go to a BC game.
Yeah. Like even like a guy like Mike Matheson or someone like that, like Corey Schneider, people that you don't even think of
I know.
BC when you think about them, like Johnny Hockey. I mean,
Crazy.
it's awesome. Great hockey town here. It's good to support Boston-based artists, such
Absolutely.
as you guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming in. And honestly, Jacob, like, this isn't possible without you saying yes. Like, you were very, like, okay with it, which I said, like, it's okay
Yeah,
if not. Like,
course.
I understand, but I was like, if I could play this song live on the air, which I did Time Zone back in, 2021 when I was in here for Sports Saturday. But
Tradition.
you guys have grown so much since then. And you weren't here when I played that song back then. You were in Vermont. I don't think you heard it live on air. And I think I sent it to Mark, and I think you might have just missed it. So it's cool you guys being here in the studio, and thank you to Jacob, honestly. Like, this isn't possible without you. So
Yeah,
thank you,
absolutely.
Jacob.
This is
Of
really
course.
awesome.
Of course.
Truly.
Definitely an honor.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, it's an honor for me as well to be on the air here. So, it's it's a great opportunity for everyone involved, I would say. And also,
Absolutely.
it's good to hear from you guys because the station's always looking for Boston artists to interview and interact with, and kind of build a little bit of a music community.
A resume too. He
Yeah.
builds a resume. You guys are live on air right now. This is live. Like I was telling Ryan, I was like,
That's
dude,
awesome.
this is live on like the car radio. You can listen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is official. This is legit. You
Really
know,
cool.
Yeah,
which is
the-
great.
The seats where Nirvana once sat.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That is wild.
The studio has moved a little bit since then, but still, in my opinion, same place.
The chairs might be newer, but we're still.
Yeah, exactly.
They still thrill in the room.
Yeah. Do you have a message to these listeners of Boston and Newton before we play your song?
I mean, my message in my music, I think, is kind of like, be who you are and like kind of don't really care what other people have to say about it. Because I mean, I struggle with that all the time. Is like, you know, being who I am and trying to do it. But like, there's nothing like being on stage and performing and stuff. And like, that's just what I want to do. So, whatever you want to do, go out and do it. Because like, it's only impossible if you tell yourself it's impossible. So,
Yeah.
that's what I'd have to say.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess my message would be keep going, you know. You know, we're really just at the beginning, but just since it started, and I think we're at a point that I couldn't have even pictured being at a couple years ago, thinking that, you know, I'd never get to the point where we were really going for it. And, you know, whatever it is that you want, and it's just go for it, you know. And
Absolutely.
that's kinda just a good motto to have.
Definitely.
Yeah, and what is you guys' group name? Phat Hosea?
Yeah, that's just me personally.
Oh,
He goes
word.
by his own name,
Mark Walsh, Phat Hosea, which my brother Paul actually wanted to say something really quick. I'll just read it really quick what he said. One of your Amazon listeners here, he listens on Amazon Music. Been listening to you guys on there. Likes the new song. Hopes you guys put it out soon.
Yeah, so with that, we've got the one on WZBC Newton coming live in the studio here. We are done for the afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. And again, this is 90.3 FM, WZBC Newton.